Hello everyone. I'm Michael, and this is the first episode of Will of the Council, a series dedicated to talking about all the comprehensive rules of Magic the Gathering. Before we get started on the main topic of today, I just wanted to briefly go over why I am doing this. Hopefully in the near future, me and the group will be posting videos of our Magic the Gathering gameplay. And we want to make sure that as we are playing the games, that we are obviously obeying the rules as best as we can. We don't have any judges with us while we're playing the games, for the most part. So I try my best to learn the rules as best as I can, and I decided that if I am answering my group's question of game rules, I might as well provide a source where other players can view the same information and gain the same knowledge. So hopefully these videos will help you out in answering any questions you have. Speaking of which, if you have any questions about Magic the Gathering, how certain mechanics work like mutate, or rules changes like the Commander Death trigger, how that has been updated. There's the Companions rule change that has been updated, so on and so forth. Please submit them to me. I would love to look them up and answer the questions for you because, one, it helps me learn the game better, and two, I love being able to help you guys so you can play the game better, so we can all have an enjoyable experience. So, with that said, I have one more side note. As you will probably see in this video, I am making these videos with Filmora. There'll probably be a watermark somewhere on this first one or two videos. This is my first attempt with doing this, and I've really enjoyed working with this program so far. So, if you guys like this type of content, the way that the videos are being edited, please let me know because I would love to continue to do stuff like this. And all that support, the comments, the likes, all of that will help go a long way. So, without further ado, let's get on with the main topic today. We are going to be starting at the very beginning, at the very top of the comprehensive rules. So we're going to be in game concepts, and it's going to be the general rules under that heading. So this is rule 100.1 through 100.7, which sounds like there's a lot in there, but these are actually really self-explanatory and very simple rules for the game. They're pretty much just like the ground level, the basis of like, welcome to Magic the Gathering. You know, the Jurassic Park doors open up and stuff like that. It's fabulous. So, gotta stay hydrated. Let's get into this. Rule number 100.1. These Magic rules apply to any Magic game with 2 or more players, including 2-player games and multiplayer games. So, as I've already stated, this entire series is dedicated to Magic the Gathering. So if you are here to learn the rules of Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh, or Final Fantasy, or Neopets, or what have you, this is not the channel for you. I am so sorry. Rule 100.1a. A 2-player game is a game that begins with only 2 players. Most of my video content will be multiplayer formats, but the game, was originally designed with 2 players, I imagine. So, 2-player games. You can't play this game by yourself. It's not solitaire. I'm sorry. 1B. A player... Oh, 1B. A multiplayer game is a game that begins with more than 2 players. And then see Section 8, multiplayer rules. We will get down there when that time comes. But as content goes, you will most likely be seeing multiplayer games with me in the group. Point 2. To play, each player needs their own deck of traditional Magic cards, small items to represent any tokens and counters, and some way to clearly track life totals. So, growing up as a kid, when I started playing, my dad, for example, when he would use counters or tokens, he would usually use like spare change, pennies and stuff like that. And when it came to representing life totals, that could be as simple as keeping it down on a piece of paper, and you write your starting life total and the starting life total of your opponent, and then you cross it out every time the life total changes, and so on. However, the game has been... Wizards of the Coast has been awesome by creating spinner dice that are numbered 20 to 0. For Commander players, they have the cool little, what is it? The Da Vinci Code little slider doohickeys that have life totals. And there are many applications on your phone as well that you can use. So, there are tons of ways to utilize the Magic products out there, or just use the stuff at your house, like I did when I started. Point 2A. In constructed play, or a way of playing in which each player creates their own deck ahead of time. So pretty much, if you show up to your friend's house and you pre-built a deck of your own cards. Each deck must contain at least 60 cards. A constructed deck may contain any number of basic land cards, and no more than 4 of any card with a particular English name other than basic land cards. So an example of this would be, you could show up at your buddy's house to play some Magic, and you have your deck of cards. Your deck of cards can have any number of basic land cards, but if you have 4 or more, if you have like 5 Goblin Welders in your deck, that's a no-go. That's no. But there are cards in Magic's history that have rules text that contradict that. We'll get into how that works later on. But for example, if you have a card like Shadowborn Apostle, it's a one black mana human cleric, I believe. I'm going to pull it up on my phone real quick just to make sure that I'm not misleading you all. Where is a Shadowborn Apostle? I love that card. Doop! Shadowborn Apostle is a 1 black mana 1/1 human cleric, and it has... drop my papers here. It has a static ability that says a deck can have any number of cards named Shadowborn Apostle. This is one of those few cards in Magic's history that doesn't have to obey the card name limitation like it does in Commander or in 60 card formats. So, you could show up to your friend's house with a mono black deck, and the deck could have 20 swamps and 40 Shadowborn Apostles, and that's totally fine. But if it had 40 Goblin Welders, that's not okay. That's so wrong. I mean, unless you just wanted to show off that you have a stack of cards of Goblin Welders, then good for you. I mean, that's a really good card. I will not besmirch the honor of that Goblin Welder. Moving on to point 2B. In limited play, or a way of playing in which each player gets the same quantity of unopened Magic product, such as booster packs, and creates their own deck using only this product and basic land cards. Each deck must contain at least 40 cards. A limited deck may contain as many duplicates of a card as are included with the product. So, you show up to your buddy's house and they want to do a draft. Everyone gets their booster packs, they pick their cards, they pass the packs around, and you get a deck of cards. The cool thing about this format is that you can have more than 4 duplicates in your deck of 40 cards. It's a good way of doing that because if you had to stick strictly to the 4 card limit, there would be a lot of times where you would not have a working deck. So, great stuff there. Doing drafts is fantastic. hopefully we can be doing a draft with the group in the future as well. That would be awesome to do a couple episodes like that. Let's see, moving on. Point 3. Some casual variants require additional items, such as specially designed cards, non-traditional magic cards, and dice. And then it talks about going to section 9, which is talking about casual variants, and we of course will get down that road later on. Needless to say, casual and variants includes things like Archenemy or Plains Chase, both of which use separate Magic the Gathering cards. They're like big oversized cards. Plains Chase specifically uses a special die as well, and we can talk about that in a later episode. Point 4. Each player may also have a sideboard, which is a group of additional cards the player may use to modify their deck between games of a match. So, what this is saying is, now, obviously we play casual in our group, so we play Commander. Commander does not have a sideboard, but the other formats do. Standard, Legacy, so on and so forth. They are additional cards that you can swap out in between games. Usually when you're doing a tournament setting, there are multiple games in a match. And then in between each game, let's say you lose the first game, but you have just the card in your sideboard to beat this deck. So you swap some cards in, you swap some cards out. That's pretty much how the sideboard works. You have an extra set of stuff just to take care of those one little circumstances that come up. Maybe someone's really good with their graveyard, so you have like, oh, what's that card? I know what it is. It's a good card. It's a cool artifact. Oh gosh, I cannot remember for the life of me. Grafdigger's Cage, that's what it is. Grafdigger's Cage is a 1-mana artifact. Correct me if I'm wrong down below. I'm not going to look it up right now. Grafdigger's Cage is a 1 colorless mana artifact that you put it into the battlefield, and pretty much it makes it so no players can play things from their graveyards or from their libraries. So if you have a deck and you are going up against another deck that's really good with their graveyard, you lose the first game, or you win the second game. You can swap in that Grafdigger's Cage for any card or whatever, and then when you play Grafdigger's Cage, you shut down that graveyard synergistic deck, and you get another win. So that's the purpose of a sideboard. Most casual formats, however, do not use a sideboard, or most groups, you know, I mean, my group has never really used sideboards when we play 60 card Magic. And obviously, Commander, there is no sideboard, which we will talk about later on. Continuing on with the sideboard, though, in point 4a, in constructed play, and that's the format that you build the deck prior to the game, with your own collection, a sideboard may contain no more than 15 cards. The 4-card limit applies to the combined deck and sideboard. So when you have your sideboard of 15, it cannot be more than 15. When you have that sideboard, you can have 3 Goblin Welders in your main deck and 1 in the sideboard. However, you cannot have 4 Goblin Welders in your main deck and 1 Goblin Welder in your sideboard, because technically that puts the grand total to 5, which is a no-no. Alright, we do not like it. So, remember, when you are building your sideboard, the 4-card limit does apply between zones, the deck and the sideboard. And with that, move on to page 2. Point 4b, in limited play, and this is the format where you all, you get your booster packs or your pre-constructed decks, however, and you play with just the product that you have, okay? So in limited play, play involving individual players, all cards in that player's card pool not included in their decks are in that player's sideboard. So, You go through your booster packs, you assemble your main deck with the cards, also keeping in mind that there is no duplicate card limit in this style of play, in limited play. You could have, in this play, let's say you did crack 5 Goblin Welders for your deck. You could put 4 of them in the deck and 1 into the sideboard. You could also have any of the other cards you chose not to use in the main deck in your sideboard. So that could be Wilderness Reclamation, you name a card that you crack in a booster pack, it's there. It is available to you. Continuing on with the sideboard and limited play. Point 4C, in limited play involving the two-headed giant multiplayer variant. All cards in a team's card pool, but not in either player's deck, are in that team sideboard. Two-headed giant is a format, generally speaking, where you and your teammate share resources. The most important resource is life. With that included, if your teammate has a sideboard of 2 cards and you have a sideboard of 15 cards, you both have access to all 17 cards in each player's sideboard. Not the decks, just the sideboard. In point 4D, in limited play involving other multiplayer team variants, each card in a team's card pool, but not in any player's deck, is assigned to the sideboard of one of those players. Each player has their own sideboard. Cards may not be transferred between players. So instead of doing two-headed giant where you're teamed up with a player, let's just say you're doing normal team deathmatch style play. You and a teammate, you have your own separate life, your own separate decks, your own separate sideboards, but you are on a team working together. Pretty much that's all it's saying. The most important rule of this episode, point 5, there is no maximum deck size, which is great, because for the longest time when I was playing, when I first started, I always thought the max for deck sizes was 60. Like it was like Commander, where it was a set number and you had to have that number all the time, 100 cards. So I thought the same was true for 60 card formats. You had to have 60. That worked in my favor because obviously I had the least amount of cards in my deck, so I could get to all my good stuff. But then you have cards like Yorion with the companion rule that says you have to have 20 or more you have to have 20 more cards in your deck to even use it as your companion. So on and so forth. I soon learned that you could have more than 60 cards in your deck, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. I can throw all this nice stuff in there. There is a balance to that. And we can talk more about that in maybe a more specific video if people want me to discuss that. Like, what's the ratio of cards? Like, do I stick strictly to 60? Do I lean a little bit more higher cards, maybe 65 cards or even 70? What's the balance for that? And that's a whole other debate talk for later on. Today we're just talking about the general rules, which leads us to the next section. Little heads up for this section, the final segment here. The next 3 rules, I believe, they refer to Magic the Gathering tournaments. Again, this is a very casual format, or this is a very casual channel, so we will never be playing like to the strict tournament rules, points, bracket system. But I'm going to give this information to you so you have it. So, point 6, most Magic tournaments or an organized play activities where players compete against other players to win prizes. So, any kind of tournament that you can think of, this is the same thing. They have additional rules covered in the Magic the Gathering tournament rules. And you can find those at wpn.wizards.com /en/resources/rules-documents. Whew, that's a lot. These rules may limit the use of some cards, including barring all cards from some older sets. So, if you play strict formats like Legacy, Modern, Pioneer, Standard, and you go to a tournament of that format, they will have different rules depending on their format. Different cards that are allowed in that format, and cards that are not allowed in that format. Tournaments. This is point 6a. Tournaments usually consist of a series of matches. A two-player match usually involves playing until one player has won 2 games. So a best 2 out of 3 scenario. And when you're using your sideboard and stuff, that's the whole strategy of those 3 matches is, can you win the first one, learn what your opponent is doing, make the proper switches, and then hopefully win the second game as well. A multiplayer match usually consists of only 1 game. So, if you went to a 2-headed giant match, I guess, I'll stick with Commander, because that's the one I am the most comfortable with. Let's say someone did a Commander tournament. Normally, how it would work is the 4 players are gathered around, the last one standing is the winner of that match, and gets X amount of points, or moves on to the next bracket. However you decide, or however, your local game store structures it. So, moving on to the next one. I think we're almost done here. The player consists. Point 6b. Players can use the Magic Store and Event Locator at wizards.com/locator to find tournaments in their area. So, if you have an LGS that is hosting either Modern tournaments or Legacy tournaments or Commander tournaments or just Friday Night Magic, where you go and you just play for fun, or any day that they're doing an event that you can play for fun, you can find local LGS locations with wizards.com/locator. The last 2 rules, here we go. Point 7. Certain promotional cards and cards in the unglued, unhinged, and unstable sets are printed with a silver border. These cards are intended for casual play and may have features and text that aren't covered by these rules. So, there will be, as it's specifically said there are 3 sets right there: unglued, unhinged, unstable, and there's another unset that's out as well, unsanctioned. Those cards will have rules texts that, I think one of them is like Last Strike, which, it strikes last, but that's the only card that ever says that. So, those cards have rules that do not apply to the main formats, to the legal formats. They are strictly for fun, they are strictly for casual play, and they are amazing cards. I would love to do some unsets gameplay in the future with the group, as well as we are going to be looking for fun, created, themed sets that have been made. I have I'd say 7 different sets in line right now, and they're like complete set of cards that are themed around certain things. And so when we get to certain episodes in our gameplay series, we will have cards themed from certain sets. So if you know of anyone who has designed a complete themed set of cards, maybe not even themed, they just created their own custom set of cards, and you think it's really cool and fun to play with, or would be fun to play with, let me know in the comments below. Send me the links. I want to check them out. I want to play with cool cards that have been made by you guys. Mated. What am I? And oh, and that was the last one. That was it. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave comments below with any questions you have about this episode, about any other rules that you may have questions for in the future. Aside from doing this like strict from the book, you know, reading each rule and then kind of giving a brief explanation or in-depth explanation, I will make separate videos where I just answer your guys' questions, because sometimes you will ask questions, hopefully, I hope you guys will ask questions that aren't necessarily in the rules, but refer maybe to strategy or deck building or, just different concepts and ideas that don't pertain to the rules, but pertain to just playing the game. Whether that be to better yourself more competitively, to, if you want to win more, or if you just want to have fun. Like, dude, how's the best way to build a hippo deck, Like, I don't know how to do a hippo deck, but if you ask me about it, I'll look it up, and I'll do the research. I might even do the research tonight just because I want to know, how do you build a good hippo deck? Man, I got a lot of homework. Anyway, you can do that. You can ask those questions down below. Leave a comment. Leave comments to all the other social media sites that I have. They are all linked down below. Let me know what your thoughts are about the way that the video was made. If you like doing it this way, or maybe if you just want more of just a strict podcast kind of thing where you hear my sultry voice all the time. At least, I hope it's a sultry voice. Charming and all that. Let me know down below, because I want to do whatever I need, to make this a good show, to make this a good experience, and most importantly, to help everyone be able to understand how the game works and how to make the game a great experience for everyone, for you and for those you play with. So, leave comments down below. If you leave a like, a subscribe, those are great ways to help the channel for free. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!